Of the Cardenas Juvenile Justice Crime Prevention Act. As chair of the Los Angeles Ad Hoc Committee on Gang Violence and Youth Development, Cardenas identified millions of dollars overlooked by the city to help keep kids off the streets and reduced crime while reducing expenditures on crime abatement programs. As vice chair of the city's Public Safety Committee, Cardenas spearheaded the most comprehensive gang intervention model in the country. The community-based intervention workers, oops, I skipped something. The community-based gang intervention model standardized and defined the methods used by gang intervention workers to help stop violence in some of LA's most dangerous neighborhoods. So, do you want to stand here? You can sit anywhere you want. Okay.
I noticed my name here, and my wonderful colleague Bobby Scott was speaking. I said, I hope people think that he's me. I came to Washington just to work with Bobby Scott, my new colleague. No, actually, Congressman Scott and I got to meet when good people around the country said, y'all need to meet each other because you're all of the same mind and you're trying to save lives and you're trying to improve communities and you're trying to make sure that we start with our youngest. And then on top of that, you both get the fact that we are wasting billions of dollars every year, and much of that money can go to other good things, but some of that money definitely needs to go into intervention prevention. And so it's my honor to be able to call you my colleague, Congressman Scott. And also, it's wonderful to see all the good people in this room where 10 and 20 years ago, you couldn't fill this many seats with people who know and care about this issue as much as we do. So we are on the right side of the issue. It's a growing truth that we are a part of. And to me, that's one of the things that we're going to have to do if we're going to get the Youth Promise Act across the finish line. And that's going to be a big, big, big impetus for us changing the way we do things here in the United States of America. And it's always wonderful to see doctor on our side of the issue, because we're talking about research-based efforts. We're talking about things that have been tried and tested and proven that they actually save lives, that these are the ways in which we should deal with young minds, etc. But unfortunately, for many, well, decades and decades and decades and decades, we as governments and policymakers have been feeding the suppression system way, way too much. But with all due respect to the suppression system, we have been willing to feed billions of dollars into programs and processes that have to do with suppression, not intervention or prevention, not preventative based, without question, without having doctor, tell us whether or not it works. And that's one of the things that Congressman Bobby Scott and I and a lot of good people like yourselves understand fully, is part of our job is to try to get as many policymakers, as many good people who care to even want to deal with these issues of crime, want to deal with these issues of making our streets safer, want to deal with even the issue of what are we doing with our taxes. Evidence-based. Thank God we have started nurturing that in a big way 10 years ago, 20 years ago or so. But honestly, 30, 40, and 50 years ago, we really didn't have much research. We really didn't have much evidence that we could actually truly point to, where you have people with doctorate degrees signing their name saying, I have looked at this. I am attesting my name to the fact that these are true facts, not just feelings. Because one of the biggest problems with elected officials is they say, and that's one of the things that they don't say very often anymore, but 18 years ago when I got elected, the first thing my staff told me to try to warn me, if you do that, sir, you're going to be seen as soft on crime. And you know what happens to people whether you're soft on crime. Whether you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, or what have you, you want to gain office or actually stay in office, you can't be soft on crime in this country. Well, now it's not about being soft on crime, it's about being right on crime. Evidence-based. And the thing that I would like to encourage all of us, so that you don't think that I'm here to depress us about how tough the fight is, remember, we live in a country where for far too long, if you were brought here from a certain continent, you weren't believed to be equal as a person. And it took a long time and a long battle for that to be overcome in the psyche, in the minds, and also in the legislation of this country. And the recognition of what this Constitution really stands for. It stands for everybody. And then also another battle. I see that the room is probably full with more women than men. There was a time where people said, women, you can't own property. You don't have the right to vote. You don't have the mental capacity. You're not fit to speak for yourself. You're not fit to be considered as equal to men. Right here in the United States of America. Again, not just in the minds and the living rooms of people, but right here in Congress. The battles were waged. So when you think about those battles, thank God right now, what we're trying to overcome right now, yes, it's about overcoming, sometimes we can be as harsh as saying overcoming ignorance, but thank God, I think in most cases, it's just overcoming people not paying attention to the facts, as this panel is going to inform all of us of. The battle is easier. I didn't say it's easy, but it's easier than it was 20 years ago. When I started working on juvenile justice, I was by myself in the legislature in California. When I came to the city of Los Angeles, the gang capital of the country, perhaps the gang capital of the world, I was by myself. But by the time I was able to get my legislation through the legislature, it was unanimous. All but one vote. That guy always voted no. And then when I was on the city council and we changed the way we deal with our intervention prevention programs and finally do it in an evidence-based way, it was unanimous. So I'm here to tell you, we've come a long way and we have a long way to go. But together, we are going to change this country. We are going to change the world for the better. We, you and me. I constantly get approached by people in other countries and they sit down in my office and they say, we want to learn from you. We want to do what you've done. And when it comes to gang issues or street violence, etc., the first thing I tell them is, whatever we did in the past, do not copy it. Okay? And I give them documents and information and people to talk to, what have you. If you want to do it right, you got to start kind of from scratch. Kind of like the way we have not been doing it in this country. Because, for example, I'll leave you with one example. Central America. El Salvador, for example. They have one of the big, when you look at the population and you look at the per person, per capita issues there, some of the highest death rates, some of the highest street violence rates in the world, in that small little country. Well, Los Angeles is responsible for most of that. There is no 18, Calle 18, 18th Street, a name of a street named 18th Street in El Salvador. There isn't, but there's one of the biggest 18th Street gangs in El Salvador. Why? Because that gang, 18th Street, came from Los Angeles and was exported to El Salvador. So the example of don't do what we've done in America in the past. But now we have examples of what we should be doing in America and around the world if we want to reduce violence. If we don't want to relegate our young minds to higher likelihood of being raped, a higher likelihood of not being able to get a job, a higher likelihood of being career incarcerated. Don't do what we've done in the past in the United States, but we need to do better here because the world is constantly watching us. The world constantly wants to copy us. And we're very fortunate now today, we have evidence-based research, ways in which we can prove to ourselves and to the world there's a better way to deal with our issues of street violence, our issues of juvenile delinquency, etc. And if you want to know some of the other things that I've done, because my staff always lists all the things that I've introduced, etc., just Google it. And if you ever have a question for me, if you'd like to come and speak with me or my staff to find out how we can work together, please do so. And I'm more than happy to sometimes even meet you in your part of the country and visit with you. Maybe we'll go together to a youth facility like Congressman Bobby Scott and I did when he came to Los Angeles. Not proud to say that the largest youth facility in the country happens to be in my backyard, in my district. Happens to be 2 miles away from where I grew up. And when I was there, I saw some of the last names and I looked at the faces and they look a lot like the kids that I went to school with. And I fear that those are their kids or grandkids, my friends, people I grew up with. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. I just wanted to come here and say thank you all very, very much for dedicating yourselves and your intellect and your lives to making this a better place and helping us policymakers in every way that we can to get things done. We're going to change this country. We're going to change the world for the better. We're going to stop being the most incarcerated place on the planet. We're going to do that in our lifetime. Or better yet, sooner than that, in our political careers. So I think Bobby and I are going to live a lot longer after we leave this place. But hopefully together we'll have gotten much, much done. Thank you.